On the vast grasslands of the Pleistocene, the silence following a hunt was broken only by the buzzing of flies. A sated pride of lions moved on, leaving behind a bare skeleton. For most creatures, this was the end of the road. But for a small group of hominins lurking and watching from a distance, this could be their last hope, where life and death were separated by a broken bone. They approached with extreme caution, every sense strained to assess the risk and identify the opportunity. The stench of decay did not just signal danger from other lingering predators. It was also a promise of the ultimate energy source, bone marrow. This precious, lipid-dense resource, protected by the hard bone that the claws and fangs of apex predators could not reach, was their target. This is a crucial truth in anthropology. Human history did not begin from the position of mighty hunters. It began with scavengers, creatures situated in the middle of the food chain, where survival depended on intelligence rather than muscle strength. The path of human evolution was not a straight line leading to power. It was a labyrinth filled with dead ends, where Homo Sapiens survived not because we were the strongest, but because we never wasted any source of energy. Bone marrow was not just food. It was essential fuel for a developing brain, and the stored fat needed to maintain body temperature. And the key to that treasure lay in a stone, intentionally shaped. This Stone Age tool became an extension of the body, allowing us to do what nature did not grant: break biological limits. Using tools to extract marrow was not instinct. It was a survival strategy that was learned and taught, creating an early cultural foundation. We survived because we were the most skilled opportunists, those who learned to see value in what others discarded. Our history was not written with a spear, but carved from a bone. So, what story does that bone tell? At the earliest archaeological sites from the Pleistocene epoch, scientists have found an answer, but it is not as simple as we might think. Beneath hundreds of thousands of years of dust, on the very same piece of bone, exist two entirely distinct types of marks. One consists of deep V-shaped grooves, the result of the crushing force from the fangs of a beast. The other consists of shallower, sharp, and often parallel cuts, the unmistakable imprint of stone tools fashioned by the hands of early humans. This complex interweaving has sparked one of the most heated debates in anthropology. Were our ancestors mighty hunters, or were they merely opportunistic scavengers? The scavenging hypothesis was initially bolstered by a wealth of compelling evidence. The logic is simple. In a world teeming with giant predators like saber-toothed cats or cave lions, a small group of hominins with crude weapons would find it difficult to compete directly. Analyses show that stone tool marks often appear superimposed over carnivore tooth marks. This suggests a clear scenario. Large predators brought down prey, ate the choicest cuts of meat, and then left. Only afterward did our ancestors cautiously approach what remained. This is also why cuts from stone tools are often concentrated on long limb bones and skulls, areas containing fatty marrow and brains, precious sources of energy that carnivores often ignore once they are satiated on soft tissue. For a creature struggling to survive, this was a logical strategy. However, scavenging does not at all exclude the possibility of hunting. Throughout human history, flexibility has always been key. When plant resources were scarce during dry seasons or ice ages, utilizing animal carcasses became a core survival strategy. But that does not mean they were entirely passive. Our ancestors were capable, opportunistic hunters. They could easily take down smaller prey like turtles and rabbits, or target large individuals that were injured, aged, or separated from the herd. Prehistoric life was not a rigid choice between hunting and scavenging. It was a spectrum of strategies where hominins constantly adjusted their behavior to adapt to their circumstances. The role of stone tools in this picture is decisive. They were not merely instruments for breaking bones to extract marrow. A sharp piece of stone could slice through thick skin and cut tough tendons that human teeth could not handle. A primitive hand axe could shatter a femur in seconds. Speed was a matter of survival. Approaching a carcass was a race against time. Our ancestors had to quickly butcher the meat, extract the marrow, and retreat before more dangerous competitors, such as hyena packs, arrived. Stone tools were the competitive advantage, allowing them to maximize caloric intake in the shortest amount of time, a testament to their intelligence in managing risk and efficiency. Therefore, the view that our ancestors were cowards waiting for the leftovers of others is a profound misunderstanding. Daring to approach the carcass of a mammoth abandoned by a pride of lions required extraordinary courage, tight-knit group coordination, and a deep understanding of the behavior of other animals. Someone had to stand guard while others worked quickly. They had to calculate wind direction to avoid detection and recognize when predators had truly departed. These were not the actions of the weak, but the strategies of the wise, who knew their own limits and utilized collective intelligence. Modern, multidisciplinary studies agree that species in the genus Homo, including early Homo sapiens, were never specialized hunters or pure scavengers. They were generalist foragers, capable of flexibly changing survival strategies. They learned how to read the ecological map around them. The circling of vultures in the sky was not a bad omen, but a compass pointing toward a potential meal. The roar of a lion in the distance was not just a threat, but a signal that an opportunity was about to emerge. Their lives were an endless journey to seek out and seize opportunities hidden within a harsh world. Understanding this past correctly is incredibly important. If we only paint our ancestors as superhuman hunters at the top of the food chain, we miss the true story of their intelligence. It is their capacity for flexible adaptation, their cleverness when at a disadvantage, and their spirit of cooperation to solve problems that are the greatest legacy that helped our lineage not only survive, but rise from a humble position in the food chain to eventually master the entire planet. To master this planet, first and foremost, we had to learn how to survive on it. Imagine a world that did not belong to us, a panoramic landscape of the Pleistocene epoch where Homo Sapiens were merely a faint stroke of paint. This was not the era of kings, but the age of the hunted. The ecological environment was a complex web of pressure, and our ancestors, with their relatively fragile physiques, did not stand at the top of the food chain. They were surrounded by large predators, biological machines evolved for slaughter, possessing superior speed, strength, and ambush capabilities. Life was not a stroll, it was an incessant flight. Danger was omnipresent. On the grasslands, spotted hyenas were not merely opportunistic scavengers. They were intelligent, social predators with a bite force capable of crushing even the thickest bones left behind by lions. They were direct competitors, ready to snatch the fruits of a hunt or drive humans away from a succulent carcass. On branches or rocky outcrops, leopards, masters of the art of aerial ambush, could pounce at any moment. This forced prehistoric human groups to always move with maximum vigilance. Every rustle in the bushes could be a death sentence. Human history was written not only with stone tools, but also with a wariness honed over thousands of generations. Even the most basic act to maintain life, searching for water, was a deadly gamble. In the harsh African environment of the Stone Age, water holes, reservoirs, and riverbanks were oases of life, yet simultaneously death traps. The place that gave life was also the place that could easily take it away. Giant crocodiles lay motionless like rotten logs, waiting for a moment of carelessness. Other beasts also gathered here, turning rare water points into bloody arenas of competition. To access this precious resource, our ancestors were forced to develop group survival strategies. A few acted as lookouts, while others quickly gathered water, a symphony of cooperation and absolute trust. The prehistoric struggle for survival did not end with the war between man and beast. On the same stage, Homo sapiens also faced their own non-human kin. Anthropological evidence reveals the parallel existence of other human species like the Neanderthals in Europe and Asia, or the mysterious Denisovans. They were not primitive creatures, but skilled hunters who also possessed stone tools, hunting techniques, and perhaps even language. The battle for resources, territory, caves, prey became more intense than ever. This was a competition not only of physical strength, but of intelligence and the adaptability of each hominin lineage. In an environment riddled with danger, not every member of the community had the same ability to defend themselves. Children, the elderly, and pregnant women were the most vulnerable. The pressure from predators spurred one of the greatest traits of human evolution, the development of complex social structures to protect one another. Individual safety depended directly on the cohesion of the collective. Strong men hunted, but women, the elderly, and children also played vital roles in gathering, processing food, and, most importantly, caring for and passing on knowledge to the next generation. When the sun set, fear became all the more tangible. The night was not a soft blanket, but the domain of nocturnal predators, especially big cats. Without fire, a technology not yet ubiquitous, the night was the most dangerous time. Homo sapiens groups had to find safe shelters, however temporary, in caves, under rock overhangs, or even in high tree branches. It was within that dense darkness that intimacy and mutual reliance tightened social bonds, forming strict group living habits. Furthermore, the Earth's climate was not stable. The long, arid cycles of the Pleistocene did not only deplete vegetation, but also caused water sources to dry up, forcing both predator and prey to congregate in the few remaining areas. Competition density skyrocketed. The pressure for survival was pushed to the extreme, acting as a brutal filter, keeping only those groups with the most adaptive and creative survival strategies. Prehistoric life was not an idyllic Garden of Eden. It was a relentless gladiatorial arena, a test of endurance spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Every mistake, even the slightest, could lead to total annihilation. It was in this harsh furnace that Homo sapiens had to evolve to possess quick reflexes, strategic thinking, and a marvelous sense of vigilance. The qualities forged from fear and deprivation not only helped us survive, but also became the foundation for our later spectacular rise. Indeed, the rise of Homo sapiens was not a parade of brute strength, but a symphony of subtle adaptations. In the race for survival on the Pleistocene grasslands, our ancestors did not choose direct confrontation. Instead, they shifted the game to an entirely different arena, optimizing biological efficiency. Standing upright on two legs was not merely a change in gait, it was a strategic revolution. Freed from the task of locomotion, the hands could now carry sharp stone fragments, the first tools of thought, bring food back to the group, or cradle vulnerable offspring. More importantly, vision was elevated more than a meter above the tall grass. In a world where a rustle in the bushes could signal death, the ability to spot predators from afar was a survival advantage of immeasurable value. But the secret weapon that truly helped humans claim a unique space in the day was something invisible: sweat. This unique heat dissipation capability allowed our ancestors to remain active under the scorching African midday sun. This was the time when most large predators, with their thick fur and inefficient cooling mechanisms, had to seek shade to rest to avoid the risk of heat stroke. It was during this golden hour that small groups of humans could travel long distances and reach animal carcasses that were still relatively intact without facing competition from lions or hyenas. They turned their opponents' weaknesses into their own opportunities, a sophisticated survival strategy written by physiology itself. And then we must speak of the hands, a masterpiece of human evolution. The complex structure with an opposable thumb provided an unprecedented level of dexterity. It allowed our ancestors to grasp and manipulate objects with high precision. From using a pebble to crack the femur of an antelope, revealing the nutrient-rich marrow inside, to throwing stones to drive away smaller scavengers eyeing their meal. The ability to attack or defend from a safe distance was a turning point, significantly reducing the risk of injury, which was essentially a death sentence during the Stone Age. This flexibility did not stop at the hands, but also extended to the stomach. Unlike specialized species that eat only a few types of food, Homo sapiens were opportunistic omnivores. Our diet was a diverse combination of tubers, fruits, seeds, insects, small hunted animals, and, most importantly, protein from scavenging. This diversity meant they were not dependent on any single resource. When one source was depleted, they could switch to another, allowing groups of humans to survive and thrive in various ecosystems, from arid savannas to humid forests. The foundation for all of this was an intangible yet invaluable asset: spatial memory and the ability to learn socially. Mentally recording detailed maps of the territory, where reliable water sources were, which caves were safe to take shelter in, the migration routes of large animals, transformed the surrounding environment from a chaotic place into a space that could be predicted and exploited. This knowledge did not vanish when an individual died. It was passed down from generation to generation through words, gestures, and observation, creating a repository of collective intelligence. In the grand picture of human history, Homo sapiens survived and rose up not because of a miracle or a single superior advantage. We were not the fastest, not the strongest, and did not have sharp claws. Instead, we were a composite of many sufficient advantages: efficient movement, excellent cooling, dexterous hands, a flexible diet, and a brain capable of social connection. It was this combination that created an incredibly resilient survival mechanism. In the harsh natural world, the ultimate winner is not the strongest, but the one with the most options to cope with change. The rigidity in the survival strategies of specialized predators, which was their strength, ultimately became a fatal weakness when faced with a new, unpredictable, and versatile enemy. That transformation did not come from muscles or claws, but from an invisible yet powerful capacity, the ability to coordinate. Amidst the vast grasslands of the Pleistocene era, where a lion's roar could extinguish all hope, our ancestors developed a survival tool sharper than any stone shard. It was communication. In the harsh reality of scavenging, conveying information was not an option, but the fragile line between a full meal and becoming a meal for others. Accessing a large carcass left behind by apex predators was a journey fraught with danger. The scent of blood and rotting flesh did not only attract small groups of hominins, but also acted as an invitation to hyenas, vultures, and the predators themselves who had abandoned their kill. In that environment, an effective survival strategy required absolute coordination. Anthropologists hypothesize the existence of a complex pre-language system, the foundation of human history. Although not yet capable of creating stories or abstract concepts, the ancestors of Homo sapiens undoubtedly utilized a repertoire of sounds, gestures, and facial expressions. A short hiss could be an "hurry up" command, a low growl a warning that hyenas are approaching, and a wave of the hand could signify "safe, move forward." This system did not need poetry. It only needed efficiency for the group to survive another day. Human evolution is not only recorded in fossilized bones, but also in the logic of this cooperation. One of the most significant cognitive leaps was the combination of pointing and gaze. The ability to point toward a distant bush and have the whole group look in that direction, understanding there was a potential danger, created a shared spatial awareness. It was an instantly shared mental map, a silent but highly efficient information network that allowed a small group to act as a single entity. There was no need for complex words to describe a leopard is hiding behind that rock. A straight finger and a tense gaze were enough to transmit a life-saving message. The transmission of skills also depended entirely on this nonverbal communication channel. The crafting of Stone Age tools or the technique of breaking bones to extract nutritious marrow could not be explained with words. It required meticulous demonstration. An older individual would hold a stone, demonstrating the precise angle of striking, the necessary force, and the sound of a successful strike. Younger individuals would observe, imitate, and repeat. Each meal became a practical lesson, reinforcing survival skills and strengthening the bonds between generations. Growls, screams, or distinct alarm sounds for specific threats also helped create an acoustic defensive barrier, causing solitary predators to hesitate when facing an organized collective. In moments near death, when panic could break formation and lead to disaster, communication also played the role of emotional management. A reassuring gesture from a leader, a steady sound to signal an orderly retreat could prevent a chaotic stampede. It kept the group focused on a single goal, escaping. However, it must be objectively acknowledged that this primitive communication system had clear limitations. It only served the immediate and specific needs of the prehistoric survival environment. There was no room yet for mythology, tribal identity, or stories of the past. But it was this communication infrastructure, efficient for the sake of life, that created the solid launchpad for the cognitive revolution that would take place later. Human language did not begin with philosophy or art. It was born from the rawest necessity, warning one's kin about an approaching saber-toothed tiger and pointing them toward a safe path to a bone filled with rich marrow, the precious energy needed to get through a long, cold night. Look back at the image of the bone left behind on the Pleistocene grassland. It now takes on a new meaning, not as nature's leftovers, but as a symbol of the intelligence and adaptability of a creature that turned scarcity into opportunity. This is the bedrock of human history. Prehistoric survival strategies helped Homo sapiens stand their ground. They wasted no resources, coordinated closely in groups to scavenge, and turned inanimate stone fragments into Stone Age survival tools. Dietary flexibility and constant learning from their environment created a robust defensive barrier against natural selection. At that time, we were not dominant. We were simply accumulating experience for our later rise. Each surviving generation owed its existence not only to genetics, but also to the accumulation of culture and skills, making every individual a link in a life chain spanning millennia. The foundations of tools, communication, and group social structures were set for a greater leap, the cognitive revolution. But if these basic advantages only helped us survive, what truly drove the explosion and dominance of modern humans? Let us explore this in the next section. The story of the bone is our own story, as heirs to these masters of survival. If our ancestors could survive with nothing but stones and cooperation in a world full of wild beasts, what does that lesson of adaptation and creativity mean for humanity in the 21st century? As we once again face our own existential crises?